This is the Yamaha CS-30, the top of the line from the Yamaha Monosynth series, released in 1977. This is a very flexible dual-channel monosynth, featuring a number of modulation destinations, sequencing, and hands-on control. Join me as we take a deeper look at this complex and creative synthesizer, which remains a powerful instrument for sound design. So here we have the Yamaha CS-30. This is a crazy monosynth, the top of the line from Yamaha, released in 1977, and it's essentially two Yamaha CS-15s in one instrument. As you can see, there's a lot of hands-on control, a ton of knobs here. There's also multiple envelopes on board and some other functionality, which I'll cover in a minute. But this synth is crazy. You can get all types of weird sounds. It can obviously do some bread and butter sounds, of course, as well. But this is really an experimental synth. That's the way I look at it. It's great for getting lost in sound design and uncovering new sort of sonic territory, which you normally wouldn't expect. There's also a lot of complexity here in the way it's laid out in terms of the signal routing, a lot of switches on board where you can reroute the signal path, and so it can become fairly complex and take a little bit of time to understand. But today I'm going to take you through the synth in a bit more detail. We'll listen to some sounds a little bit later, some patches that I've crafted along the way and experimented with, and then at the end I'll give you my final thoughts. So let's just do a very quick walkthrough of this control panel. There's lots going on here. So on the far left in this area here is the pitch section. To the right of that is VCO1, VCO2. Then we have VCF1 and VCF2, so you've got two filters on board here. Then we have dual VCAs, VCA1, VCA2. You've got trigger control using LFO or normal, single or multi triggers. Top right here is the sequencer. There's an 8-step sequencer. It's not quantized. And then below that, there's actually 3 envelopes, 2 of which can be inverted. So very fully featured in the envelope department. On the bottom right here is the power, volume control, as well as a balance between channels 1 and 2. And to the far left here is the control section for the LFO, Portamento, pitch bend with the lever here, as well as external audio-in control, as well as a trigger level control as well. Let's now take a listen to the oscillator section. So we'll start with VCO1. This is a sawtooth wave. It's pretty fat. Now, there's different footages. That's at 64 feet, 32, 16, 8, 4, 2. That's oscillator 1, sawtooth, square. And it's funny because this is where you actually select the different wave shapes. You select the wave shapes in the VCF section itself. So this is square. You got pulse width. Pulse width modulation. Controlled by the LFO. Which goes in the audio rate. Okay, we now also have modulation of oscillator 1 using oscillator 2, so cross modulation. Get those metallic overtones and harmonics. Yeah, that's really cool sounding. We also have pitch modulation using the LFO as well. Now that's the sine wave LFO. This is a sawtooth. Inverted saw, square, sample and hold, then you also have external audio-in, so you can actually control the pitch using external audio. That's pretty cool as well. Let's now take a look at VCO2. So I'll bring that here in the VCA, and I'll adjust the balance. Now we're listening to VCO2. Difference between these two oscillators is VCO2 actually goes down to 128 feet. So this is currently a sawtooth. That's 128 feet. Wow, right into the clicks. Square. Pulse width. Pulse width modulation. I just love the sound of that pulse width. That is so fat. Especially in these lower registers. Again, we have a modulation control for the LFO to control the pitch of VCO2. Same wave shapes. Sine. Sawtooth. Inverted saw. Square. Sample and hold. So that is VCO2. Now, one other thing here, of course, is you can mix these oscillators together. That's using the balance control here. We can detune using this pitch section, oscillator 1 against oscillator 2. Dual square waves with pulse width. Sounds awesome. Another great feature in this pitch section is the envelope control, which, there's envelopes over here, so you can actually select from the 5 different envelopes for the pitch. And just to touch on that really quick, at each one of these blocks, there's the pitch, the VCO, VCF, VCA, you can select at each destination, essentially in each block, an envelope for each block, pretty much, or an LFO. So it's kind of different than most synths. Each one of these can have its own independent wave shapes or envelopes controlling it, depending on the options here. So in this case, for the pitch, I can say, you know, I want envelope C, because it's A, B, C, D, or E for the envelopes. These are envelope 1, which has A and B, normal or inverted, B. Envelope 2 is C normal or D inverted, and then envelope 3 is letter E, just normal. But I'll say C. Let's adjust the depth. So I think you get the picture. That's pretty cool. All right, let's take a look now at VCF 1 and 2. So this is VCF 1. As I mentioned, you select the actual oscillator shapes in the VCF section using these switches at the top, which is kind of counterintuitive a little bit, but that's how they've laid it out here. So, you know, you got sawtooth, square, or those are for VCO1, or we can root in VCO2 only. All right, so VCF1, cutoff frequency. Keyboard follow. Resonance. I'm going to turn down VCF2 here. All right, we've got modulation control and envelope control for the filter. So this is modulation, so basically LFO. Same wave shapes, sawtooth. Inverted. Square. Sample and hold. Great. Envelope control. Okay. We also have noise or VCO2, which can be rerouted through a VCF1 as well. So this is noise. There's level control. VCO2. as well as external audio-in. But I don't have anything patched in, so you won't hear it. So that is VCF1. VCF2, very similar, sawtooth, square, or a high-pass filtered from VCF1. So basically serial filters here. You've got resonance, keyboard follow. And then you've got modulation depth from the LFO. Sample and hold. Okay, we've got envelope depth here as well. Okay, so you can select from the different envelopes if you need to. So that's VCF2. Now we have VCA1 and VCA2. So VCA1, you can select from the actual filter types here using these switches. So low pass, band pass, high pass. You also have control over the VCA using 3 different envelopes, A, C, or E. So that's E, envelope E, C, A. Okay, you can also hold. We'll essentially let it drone. And then we have actual control for the mixing of the VCFs into VCA1. So we've got VCF1 control. So VCF1 into VCA1. VCF2 here into VCA1. We also have modulation depth for this VCA from the LFO for tremolo, sawtooth, inverted saw, square. And external audio-in. Now, another great feature in this section is you can actually mix in a sine wave from VCO1 itself. So it bypasses the filter, but it's post-filter here, so just a bit more bottom end to beef up your signal. Okay, so looking at VCA2, you've got the same filter types, low pass, band pass, and high pass. You've got envelope select for envelope A, C, or E, as well as holding, or envelope control for it. In addition, you've got modulation control from the LFO here. There's also a ring modulator on board here, so that can be controlled from the LFO itself or VCO1. So this is LFO. Or VCO1. You hear that metallic? So that's VCA2. Then we have this trigger section here, which can be normal or LFO. So if we say normal, that's what we've been on. LFO. It'll trigger the notes. Okay, so we have a multi and a single trigger in this section as well. So multi, obviously the envelope triggers more than once. So if I hold a key, I can re-trigger the envelope. As you can see in the lights going on here. If I say single, it does not re-trigger the envelope. Okay, now looking at this envelope section, it's quite fully featured for what it is. You've obviously got 3 envelopes here. Envelope 1 and envelope 2 are invertible, envelope 3 is not, but they all can be triggered from the keyboard, which I've been doing here, or the sequencer, which we'll take a look at in a minute, or you can have external audio-in triggering the envelopes. That's really cool as well. In addition to that, you have normal time, or ×5, which will extend the envelopes 5 times. So this is normal, this is ×5. There we go. It goes on quite a while. So as I mentioned, there's invertible envelopes here. So to access that, we would obviously go to the block that we want to modulate with an envelope, select that particular inverted one. So in this case, in envelope 1, it's letter B. It's letter B for VCF 1 and 2. Okay, this is A, which is normal. Okay, so that's how you would select the envelopes for instance, the filters. And of course, you can mix and match these envelopes at each different destination as you wish. All right, looking at this sequencer here, so this is quite interesting. It's an 8-step sequencer. You can select which steps you want to use. So you've got a clock speed here, you've got start, stop, and you've also got a hold option to hold the sequence on a particular note. You can manually advance through the sequence steps using this manual option here in the switch, or you can say clock, like so. It'll turn on the clock, which is controlled by this clock speed knob, and you can say normal or keyboard triggering, and you can also play on top if you want. So I'll just press start. So now that the sequencer is running here, if I want to actually hear it, I have to set the oscillators to use the sequencer. And so I can say for VCO1, I want sequence to affect it. And the same for VCO2. Right? Now if I want that to constantly play, I just turn on the hold option for each VCA. So VCA1, VCA2. Now, it's obviously tracking the keyboard here. I can also say normal. And And I can say, you know what, for VCO2, put it on top, or vice versa. So quite interesting. We can also adjust these knobs here, or the steps. So I can say I want only one step, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we can tweak it. Now, in addition to this, we can also trigger the envelopes using the sequencer. I think you guys get the point there. So it's an interesting little sequencer. You really need to spend your time getting into it to tweak the knobs to the notes that you want to get sort of the right pitch. It's not quantized, and that can take a bit of time to obviously set up. But it does let you trigger different things on this synth, which is awesome. Moving on, let's take a look at this section over here on the left. Let's take a look at the LFO. So I'll modulate the pitch with the LFO here. Obviously goes in audio rate. And another great thing with this LFO here is you can control it with one of these envelopes. Again, just like every other destination on this synth, pretty much, you can apply an envelope to the LFO. So that's envelope A. I could say envelope B, inverted. Envelope C is this one here. So, yeah, lots of control over this LFO using those envelopes for the speed. Then we also have Portamento here, right here with this little slider. Okay, that's great to have. And we also have a pitch bend amount and control with this little slider here as well. So, how much? Then we have this external audio in, so if I had a signal patched in, I could control the actual trigger level as well as the signal level, which would pass into the synth in these various sections. So that is the Yamaha CS-30 at a very high level here. Just wanted to give you a quick walkthrough of this panel. Let's now take a listen to some sounds. I'll do some just experimental crafting as I go to come up with some patches, because there is no patch saving on this synth. Obviously, it predates any memory. But let's take a listen to some sounds and see what this thing's capable of. It really comes together and shines when you're just tweaking different sources, different destinations, different LFO and envelope settings at each block, whether it's the VCO, VCF, VCA, or pitch, and of course triggering things like the envelopes or the sequencer in each one of those as well. So let's take a listen, and then I'll come back after that and I'll give you my final thoughts on this crazy synth. So, hope you guys enjoyed some of those sounds. It was a lot of experimental sort of modulations and sequencing, as well as envelope triggering, ring mod, cross modulation, LFO at audio rate, and everything in between. Just mixing and matching the different routings, filter types, and things of that nature to give you a sample of some of the types of sounds this thing can do. Not so much of a melodic demo, but really just wanted to showcase some broad sounds from the Yamaha CS-30. So at this point, I wanted to cover some of the things I like about this synth, some of the things I don't like about it, and give you my final thoughts. All right, so what do I like about this synth? Well, first of all, the interface. As you can see, there's a ton of hands-on control here, lots of knobs, sliders, etc., which makes it exceptionally easy to start crafting your patches or your sounds and just experimenting as you go. So, great hands-on interface, and really enjoy that aspect of the Yamaha CS-30. As well, the modulation capabilities of this synth are pretty crazy. I mean, pretty much every block has modulation available from the LFO or from the envelopes, which of course can be triggered from the sequencer or some other parameter, depending on what's available. So it really gives you a lot of flexibility, almost semi-modular in some aspects here due to the signal routing. And that really opens up the sound design possibilities. As well, of course, this is a dual channel synth. It's essentially two Yamaha CS-15s in one instrument. And that gives you a lot of flexibility for parallel filtering, parallel signal pass for the VCOs and the VCA, and really allows you to craft sort of different types of patches on each channel. And of course, there's dual outputs as well in the back, which allows you to then route those into your mixer and process them accordingly. So, love to have that flexibility. As well, the sequencer that's on the synth, I mean, it's pretty basic, but, Yamaha was nice enough to give us this on this CS-30 here, just to add some more flexibility for crafting patches and triggering different sounds. And that really gives you additional flexibility beyond the CS5, the CS-10, the CS-15. They don't have a sequencer on board. This is integrated, which is awesome. What else? We have something unique to the CS-30, which is cross modulation as well as ring modulation. None of the other CS mono series in the black edition have that. So awesome to have that on board. Again, opens up more sound possibilities, depending how you program it. In addition, 3 envelopes. Amazing to have 3 envelopes on this synth, 2 of which can be inverted, all of which can be triggered, and all of which can accept external audio. So, again, very fully featured envelopes on the Yamaha CS-30. Just gives you a lot of flexibility and possibilities with that. Lastly, the external audio-in that's available on the synth seems to have been very well thought out in terms of allowing you to process it, through VCF1. You can add that in there. You can, again, process it through the envelopes. You can process it right here with the trigger level, signal level. It's a key function of this synth if you want to route external audio into it. So great to see that on board as well. And lastly, as I mentioned earlier, the destinations for the LFO. This thing can be routed pretty much anywhere, which is awesome. And having the different wave shapes at each destination, depending on what you set it to. Can get very flexible. So love that. Okay, so those are the things I like about the Yamaha CS-30. What don't I like about it? Well, first of all, although it's very knob-laden and there's a lot of hands-on control, it's actually kind of confusing to use when you first approach it, if you're not used to this style of interface. You know, you've got the oscillator wave shapes selectable within the VCF section, and then you've got the VCF types, low pass, band pass, high pass, selectable within the VCA section. I have never seen that on any other synth. So it's just kind of an interesting method and way that they built this synth, and it sort of throws you off a bit if you're not used to it. It takes some time to learn, it takes some time to remember where certain parameters are as you're just going along, but with practice you can overcome that. But I would just say it's not the most intuitive synth up front, other than obviously the hands-on control, but you really need to sit here and understand the signal flow at a deeper level to really dive into it. The sequencer, great to have on board. However, as I mentioned a few times in this review, it's not quantized, unfortunately, so it takes some time to fiddle with to get the proper pitch. As well, some of these functions are a bit esoteric, doesn't always behave the way you expect. So that can be a bit confusing again. Takes some time out of your patching to sit there and fiddle with. So that's just the way it was designed. It's not quantized. Just have to make do as such. But it's still great to have that sequencer on board, no matter what. One thing about the synth is like upper notes are triggered when you're holding down a note, but lower notes from that note are not. So that's unfortunate. Would have been nice to have that functionality to also be able to trigger lower notes from a held note. As well, there is no oscillator sync. You cannot sync these oscillators. Maybe there's a modification out there that can be done. If someone's done so, maybe they have some schematics they could share. But I haven't found a way to sync the oscillators on this synth, and I don't think it's possible by default. So if you're looking for sync sounds, it's not really available right out of the gate with this synth. There's only one LFO on board. It's a flexible LFO because you can route it to many destinations. However, it's still only one LFO. So it is somewhat limiting in the types of, modulations or speeds that you can offer for different blocks here. It would have been nice to have a second LFO if it was possible back then. Noise is available. However, it's mixed into VCF1 with the oscillator. I haven't found a way to just have noise on its own. So if someone knows, maybe I'm just not routing the signal correctly, but there's always going to be an oscillator in the background from what I can see here. And lastly here with the synth, this is from 1977. It's vintage, and that also has some things to think about. It's a bit old in terms of chips. Some of the chips in here might be a bit more rare to get your hands on if you need to get one repaired. I'm not sure how readily available they are or how much they cost on the secondhand market, but it's something you have to consider. It's the age of the synth. Okay, so those are the things I don't like about the Yamaha CS-30. Now, all that said, this is still one of the coolest monosynths that I've tried. And I think if you can get your hands on one, you will not be disappointed, because there's a lot of vintage goodness in the CS-30. It's essentially the top of the line dual CS-15s in a single instrument, which makes it very powerful and flexible for sound design or for crafting different patches. This is really an experimental monster synth. It begs to be tweaked and just experimented with. And it's really for the mad professor types, I think. So if you have a hankering for that, definitely keep your eyes out for the Yamaha CS-30. This is a classic Yamaha sounds. Semi-modular, essentially, without the patching. And it does take time to learn, but with practice, hopefully it will become second nature. And it is great for basic tones, but certainly it excels in that experimental area and happy accidents. So, to wrap up here, I would say this is a rare, unique, and fantastic monosynth from Yamaha. And essentially it's the king of their black Yamaha CS line for monosynths. So keep your eyes peeled. Yamaha CS-30 has a lot of beef. And despite some of the shortcomings I mentioned earlier, I think this is still a fantastic synthesizer. Just sounds pure electricity. Pulse width modulation, so fat. Love that sound. So thank you very much for watching today. Hope you guys enjoyed this walkthrough and review of the Yamaha CS-30. And let me know what you think in the comments. Love to hear your feedback. If you haven't already, please leave a like, subscribe, tap the bell, and I will see you again next time.